It's another Friday, and we're talking about how to build our lives around a blueprint. We started last week. If you didn't have a chance to hear that episode, I hope you'll go back and check that out. We talked about clarity and asked that question: what are you really trying to accomplish with your life, and what does it look like as you think about that? If you didn't get that episode, I really do encourage you to go back and check that out from last week. Welcome to Chasing Greatness. It's been a good week. I hope you've had a really good week. It's been a fantastic week for me, and I'm really excited about today because I think today is going to help us not build on what we talked about last week, but actually be a foundation for what we talked about last week when it came to clarity. So thanks for downloading, subscribing, leave your comments, questions, anything you got. Find somebody that you can encourage and share this with when today's over. You got some friends probably that are trying to build their life. I'm going to give you a way to actually have a written copy of this blueprint here as we go through. But we're spending these next couple of weeks looking at some C's. I call them C's. They start with C, that will help you as you think about building your life. Now, this building concept came from my wife, who, as I mentioned last week, maybe it was 2003. I mean, it feels like it's been almost a couple decades now. She says, I want us to build a house. And I knew I was in trouble at that point because I am not a builder at all. I don't, when it comes to houses, I'm not a builder. I like to build stuff, but you don't want me with a hammer in my hand. I'm just not comfortable there, being in charge of putting together a structure. And yet I'm still sitting in the same house 19 years later. It's a great place to live. It's been so much fun to be here. And while I think the clarity, last week I mentioned that as number one. I really do think it's it's number one on my list of 5 C's. But I believe your convictions. That's today's topic. I believe your convictions are even more important. Your convictions become the foundation for your life. And as I think back on this house that I'm sitting in today, it's still standing because it has a really good foundation. And if your life is going to become what you want it to be, if you're going to win at life, I mean, that's what Friday's about here, right? If you're really going to win at life and feel like you have a winning life, it's going to be so important for you to have the foundation. And I think your values are the place where that foundation is it lays. It is your these are your convictions. I mean, that's when we say values, I'm talking about your convictions. What do you really believe, and why are those things so important to you? So let me give you some questions. I think these questions will help you as you begin to think about your convictions. If they become core to who you are, if they really do become the guiding force behind your life or the foundation for your life, I think that's the better way to say it, because all kinds of things are going to come against your life. You're going to get hit with circumstances and hard stuff. And if you have those foundations there, your life is going to stand the test of time. So let me give you some questions here to think about. The first one is, what if you had to say 3 to 5 values are core to your life and your leadership? What 3 to 5 values are core to who you are? And are you really living like those things are true? That actually leads me to a second question. The second question is not just what are my core values or values that I want to be, but what behaviors are evident when I'm true to those values, when I'm living like those things are true. What behaviors are evident? I mean, other people should be able to see it. If these things are really core to your life, other people ought to be able to see that when they get around you. And then the third question, are there areas in your life where you're compromising on your stated convictions? In other words, you have some things that you would say are important. You have some things that ought to be true if they are important, and yet you look at your life and you say, I'm actually violating some of my foundational principles, and I'm wondering why my life is shaking here. I think the last couple years have been very interesting for several reasons. One is as the culture has been shaken, as the circumstances around our lives, health challenges, financial challenges, economic stuff, there's world events, all kind of stuff just seems to be shaking right now. And yet the people I know who have rooted their lives in their convictions, they have a foundation that they've built their lives on, several things. They say these are the things that are important. they seem to be doing pretty well right now. They're standing against the storms, and the people who aren't are really struggling right now. And so I would just encourage you to evaluate your life and ask yourself, do I have convictions that I've identified? I've written them down. I know what they are. And I'll give you one example. Let's say that you say that humility is going to be one of the convictions of your life. It's something you want to build your life on. Now, it's not very popular. Most people are not saying, I want to be humble. And yet, let's say it is one of your convictions. If that's true, and it's one of the things you've stated, then there ought to be some actions that would be true. What would be some examples if humility was one of your things? You would think about living last. We say here all the time that chasing greatness is not just trying to reach your potential, but it's really trying to help other people reach their potential. Or it's this mindset, I'm going to help somebody else win today. And so humility should be evidenced in our lives. If it's one of our convictions, it should be evidenced by the way we treat other people, the way when things happen and we do something great, do we share credit with those around us who helped us be great? When things don't go so well for us, are we quick to accept responsibility for that? Or are we always, blaming somebody else around us? So humility would show up in several ways. And if today, let's say humility was one of your convictions and you have these stated behaviors that would be true if humility was your conviction, and you notice in your life you are you've become selfish in some areas, or you've become proud in some areas. I mean, these are the kind of things that would show I'm violating my core conviction of humility if that was one. And so I want to encourage you today to get yourself 3 to 5 convictions that you say, these are going to be what I'm going to build my life on, anchor my life to, and watch what happens. If you will identify those areas, you will identify some behaviors that will give evidence to those things being a reality, and then you'll evaluate yourself over and over. I think you'll find that your life will be much more stable. Again, it'll be anchored. Now, I like that word anchor. I think back to when I was a kid. My dad and my brother and I used to do a lot of fishing. We loved to go fishing. It was so much fun. It was so cool. We had a little bass boat, and we would go to a lake not too far from our home, pretty good sized lake, and this lake is it's just massive. There's where do you fish? And so my dad always seemed to have a good idea where we need to go, and we would go try one place, and if we didn't catch anything, it was no big deal because we're going to go somewhere else. And then we go somewhere else. We try to catch something. We didn't catch anything. My favorite times when we were fishing were those times when my dad would say, "Drop the anchor, boys." That's what he would say. He'd say, "Drop the anchor, boys. We're going to be here a while." If we caught a couple of fish, my dad knew that was a good spot, and he would tell us to drop the anchor. And when we put that anchor down, it held our boat in place. It literally had enough weight on it. If you've been in a boat with an anchor, you drop it to the bottom, and the boat might drift a little bit, but it's not going to get too far away. It doesn't matter how windy it is. We were some windy days I can remember, and yet that anchor would hold us in place. A little bit of slack, it wasn't perfect, but it's not. The boat is not going anywhere as long as it's anchored. And I think that's a really good way to think about our lives. Our lives aren't going anywhere if we have something that we're anchored to. And I think our values, we don't really think about them enough. So as you're thinking about building your life here, yes, you need clarity. You need to know what kind of life you're trying to build, but you got to build it on something. You got to have a foundation to help you know, like this is what I'm going to be anchored to. And I think that's such a good way to think about it. There's a teacher years ago, he's passed away now, but a guy named Howard Hendricks, he was a professor of theology. And Howard Hendricks once said, "A belief is something you will argue about. A conviction is something you will die for." And it's incredible to me when I look around the culture right now. Everybody wants to argue about stuff. I believe this and you believe that, and I'm right and you're wrong. And it's just crazy what people are willing to argue about. It's stuff they believe, and I respect that. That's great. But a conviction is something, according to Howard, that's something you're willing to die for. as you begin to think about your values, I would encourage you to level those up to the point of saying, this is something that you're not going to have to die for them, but this is something I'm going to live for. This is something I'm going to live my life based on these core convictions. And I think if you'll do that, you really will be anchored to that place. And so when the circumstances get against you, I mean, they're coming. It's going to get windy. It's going to get blustery in your life. I'm not talking about the weather here. I'm talking about you're going to have hard stuff that you're going to be up against. You're going to have challenging people. You're going to have projects that seem daunting. You're going to have deadlines that you don't, am I even going to make it? You're going to have people that you have to work with that just are making things difficult. You may have people that you're living with. We talk about winning at home as well here. And so you may have difficult people that you're having to live with. You may be in a difficult season in your marriage or in your parenting, whatever you got going on. I think those convictions are going to give you something to anchor to. So as you create your leadership blueprint, I want you to make note that your foundation is going to determine how much impact your life is going to have. Those convictions are going to become your foundation. So we do want clarity, but we've got to have some convictions. We've got to have a foundation to build that life on. And if we have that, I think we're well on our way to being great, to winning in life. And so I really want to challenge you to think about your convictions today. Now, let me give you here's something you can do. So I would encourage you to, when you turn this off, spend a few minutes and if you had to make a list of 10 things that you said, these could potentially become values that I want to base my life on, just go ahead and make a list of 10. Brainstorm, like what would they be? You might even put humility on your list. It might be one that you say, that's something I aspire to. That's great. But once you get your list of 10, I want you to spend a few extra minutes and think, okay, how would I get this list down to 5? Are there 5 of those values, the 5 convictions, things that you say, I'm going to base my life on these 5 things? And then you might even narrow it down to 3. And you might even do the exercise of saying, what's my most important conviction? I think this is very important. This is literally the foundation of your life. You say, if I don't have anything else be true about me, this is one thing. I am basing my life on this. I think there's such value in that. And if you'll do that, I think, again, you'll be well on your way to winning at life. So let's work on our convictions this week. And then let's not just put them on paper. Let's identify some things that would be true if these things are in our life. What would those behaviors look like that would match those? And then let's just go live like they're true next week. I think we'll do that. We're going to be a lot more fun to be around. We're going to have a lot more fun as we live our lives because we've got something that no matter what happens around us and whatever the situation is, we've got something that will anchor us and it'll hold us when those storms come. So work on your convictions this week. It becomes the foundation of your life. If you want the complete blueprint, we've written a book called The 5 C's of Self-Leadership. You can get that at randygravitt.com. I encourage you to go there. You can download it. It's like a 20-page ebook that we've done. Really cool. It's got all the stuff that we're talking about here these few weeks. But if you want to get ahead and you want to be in the fast class, I encourage you to do that. Share that with your friends. Love to hear from you there. But let's go get us some convictions. Make sure that we've got them locked in. What are the behaviors? And then let's go live like they're true. If we will, I'm convinced we'll be great. All right. Love you guys. We'll see you next week.